Hello my besties, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel, or should I say hello to my future book besties, because I made this video for two types of people. The first one is for people who are trying to get into reading for fun, or number two, people who took a really long break from reading and trying to get back into it again. I started reading 2 years ago after a 15 maybe 20-year break. Like, it's been since high school, and I'm 34 years old now, and all it took was just seeing one story on Instagram from my friend who rated a book 5 stars, and she said everyone has to read this book. So the next day when I was at Target in the book section, I saw that book and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna pick it up, and that just opened all the hellgates for me. Hello from future me. So I forgot to add that I chose these books based on how easily readable they are and also bingeable, so you could almost read them in one sitting. So I've included books from different genres, so romance, dark romance, cowboy romance. Can you tell I love romance? I've included fantasy romance and some thrillers. So there's a little bit of something for everyone out there. Okay, now back to the video. I know that starting a new hobby can be really daunting and sometimes you just don't know where to start, so this video is for you. I'm going to start off by sharing some of my general tips for new readers, and my first one is to sign up for a Fable or Goodreads account. So these are apps where you can use to track books that you're currently reading, or to also track books that you want to read in the future. And I love this because whenever I see a book recommendation from my friend on social media, I just go on the app and just add it right to my library. My second tip is also a shameless plug. Subscribe to YouTube channels such as mine or my other favorite YouTube content creators such as Larry Reads and Sarah Caroli. I find that just watching other people read or just talk about books is just so therapeutic for me, and I get so many of my amazing book recommendations from them. Another one I use, which might be controversial, is to use TikTok. I also found so many of my favorite books through my friends on TikTok. Reddit is also a really good source for book recommendations. I love the fantasy romance subreddit, also the book of the month club, or I think it's just called book of the month subreddit as well. My third recommendation is to sign up for a Libby account or sign up through your local library if you have not already, because this is a great way to access free books and ebooks and audiobooks. Speaking of which, I do think audiobooks do count as a book. And sometimes it's just hard to sit down and just pick up a book and read. So I think audiobooks are great, especially if you're just commuting to and from like work, the gym, stuck in LA traffic. It's such a great way to just get some reading in. And I especially love when the audiobook is synced with the book, so you can, go back and forth between those two. Also for me, I am primarily a physical reader, but I also do have a Kindle, which let me go get it. Okay, I'm back. So this is my Kindle. It is a Kindle 12th generation signature edition that my fiance just got for me for Christmas, or I think, yeah, Christmas last year, and I absolutely love it. But I am not saying to just go and jump to Amazon and buy an e-reader. I would just kind of first assess what your general situation is. Are you somebody who has the most free time at night where it's hard to read? Then I think an e-reader would be really good. Another tip that I think is really important, I can't believe I didn't put this as number one, is that it's okay to put books down, do not finish, or just completely just stop reading them. I think in the beginning of your reading journey, you may or may not know what you like to read. So if you try to force yourself to read something that you're just not feeling, it can just make you not want to read ever again. Also, if you're a mood reader like me, you just may be thinking this book may not be for me right now, but I'm just gonna put it away. I'm gonna soft DNF it for now and pick it up back in a month or two when I'm ready. And then my next set of tips is for all my ADHD besties. My first and utmost important tip is to create an environment that's distraction free. So if you have the TV in the background, or you have music playing, music with lyrics, I feel that's really hard for me to sit down and focus. But I love reading ambiance YouTube playlists on here on YouTube. I feel just with noise canceling headphones, it just helps me sit down and just focus. My other tip is to do habit stacking. When you're doing one thing, try to stack it with something else. Okay, that kind of sounds really dumb and obvious. So how I habit stack is when I go to the gym and I'm on the treadmill, I'll take my Kindle with me and read while I'm walking. And I feel this just really, for some reason, even though I'm doing two things at once, it just helps me focus even more. And I'm just wow, 30 minutes has already passed by that fast. So I am not only getting my reading in for the day, but I'm also trying to get my whatever step goal or your fitness goals as well. Another thing for me is setting a timer, and you could just either use your phone app for just a timer, or I also like the Pomodoro app, which is a website where you can use to just track, just to help you stay focused for X amount of minutes. I'd say start small, maybe 10 to 15 minutes, and just go from there, and reward yourself too. Or maybe you can set a goal of I'm gonna read 2 chapters in this one sitting, and afterwards I'm gonna get a little snack, or I'm gonna go walk up and get around. And okay, now let's get started. I am starting this off with some romance books, and this is the Part of Your World series by Abby Jimenez. I think these are considered standalone books, so you don't have to read them in order, but I would just recommend to because you'll see characters pop in and out throughout the books. This was actually my gateway book into romance. I kid you not. Like, after I started reading Abby Jimenez, I just started reading all of her other books, and then I found authors that were similar to Abby Jimenez and just went down a huge rabbit hole. I feel like what I love the most about her books is that they're so bingeable and easy to read, and she puts so much emotional depth into her books too. So when you're reading this, I recommend, just keeping some tissues nearby because I was sobbing at some points. Even though the covers look so just so happy and just nonchalant, I feel like there's really deep topics in the books too. And then my next book is another romance book. This is by Christina Lauren, and this is called The Paradise Problem. Fun fact, Christina Lauren is actually a duo, Christina and Lauren. They just combined their names. And this is one of my favorite books from them. This one has some fake dating and fake marriage too, and I just love that trope so much. And if you like White Lotus, I would recommend this as well because this book is kind of set in this like private island, very bougie area where the female main character and the male main character have to go out and like meet his family over there, hence like the whole like fake marriage thing. And you'll also get a flavor of class division. But it's just so funny. I feel like the banter between the two characters is so good. Honestly, one of my top Christina Lauren books. Okay, for my next recommendation, it is the Never After series by Emily McIntyre. I know this is a very hefty set, but I will say that out of this one, Scarred was the one that got me into dark romance. And I understand that dark romance is not for everyone, but this series is kind of on the lighter side of dark romance, so if you're trying to get into it, I feel like this would be a good start. So this series is a Disney retelling story. So Scarred is based after Lion King, and it's not actually like the animals or anything like that. What I also liked about this series is that it introduced me to smut, and you know what? I love smut, and I'm not afraid to admit it. Emily notes that these are fractured fairy tales and not actual fantasy or retellings of the Disney books or movies. You'll find that the main character is usually the villain. So also something I didn't know about Emily is that she's a breast cancer thriver or survivor. So I didn't know that she was diagnosed with breast cancer, I think so the last book in the series is Hexed. And she actually writes in here that she was diagnosed with breast cancer when she was at the very early stages of writing this book. How crazy is that? I honestly don't know how she wrote this thick book while she was going through all of her treatments. I think she's an amazing person, and that makes me love her books even more because she really dedicates her soul and all of her energy into it. I also love her Instagram page, so if you don't follow her on Instagram, go check her out. Okay, so moving on to a different genre. I have Verity by Colleen Hoover. So this is a psychological thriller, and it does have a pretty, I wouldn't say romance is the main part of this book, but I would say it's a significant subplot. I could not put this book down, and I kid you not, I was actually so spooked. I did not think a book would get me this scared. It was one of those books where I feel like I had to keep the lights on or just like a night light wherever I was reading because I was just like, who is gonna be popping up at the top of the stairs or something like that. What I love so much about this book is that it's so addicting and it just makes you want to keep turning the page. And I thought about this book even days after I finished it because I was thinking the way the story ends, it makes you wonder if that's the actual truth to the story. And fun fact, this book is turning into a movie and is coming out, I think, of October of next year. It's going to feature Anne Hathaway, Dakota Johnson, and Josh Hartnett. So I would definitely recommend reading this book before you watch the movie. Actually, you know what? That's how I would, I recommend reading the book and then just watch the movie later. And for another psychological thriller, I have The Teacher by Frida McFadden. So Frida McFadden is actually her pen name, and her 9-to-5 job is actually a brain injury specialist. Isn't that crazy? So not only is she doing some baddie things on the side, but she's also writing a million books. She publishes books like, it feels like one after another, is that she just makes you want to just sit in one sitting and finish the entire book. So whether you're in a book slump or if you're trying to get a flavor of a different type of genre, then I think this is a wonderful place to start. All right, now back to some romance. I have here the Chestnut series by Elsie Silver. Oh my gosh, I think Elsie Silver is the queen of small town cowboy romance. She is just so good. Every single one of her books is just so bingeable. I feel like, how many times am I gonna say bingeable in this movie or in this YouTube video? This entire series is meant to be read as standalone books, but they are kind of interconnected. So I would recommend just starting in publication order. So I think the first one, Flawless, and then you have Heartless, Powerless, Reckless, and then Hopeless. Out of all of these books, my favorite actually is Reckless. So this is a book where there's a surprise accidental pregnancy after a one-night stand. And I know that trope is not for everyone, but I think for me, because I personally don't want to have kids, I just live vicariously through the female main characters in books where there's a pregnancy trope. But if you don't like the pregnancy trope, I think the rest of the books in this series is so well done. I think you'll absolutely love them. Alright, and I can't make this video without mentioning fantasy romance. And if you have not heard of the ACOTAR series, let me get you on them, okay? So this was my first fantasy romance book that I've ever read, and it was life-changing for me, and you'll start to learn why Reese is everyone's favorite book boyfriend. Or if you've read this book, let me know what you thought of Tamlin when you first saw him in the book. But my tip for this series is that it is a hefty series. So if you try to read one after another, it's just going to take you so long, and I feel like it'll just burn you out. So what I recommend is just reading one and then take a little break, a little what I call a palate cleanser or coffee bean book, and read something else such as the Chestnut Spring series, and then go into the next book. Sarah J Maas announced that she's releasing the next book in this series. Who knows when, but you know, you might want to read these and catch up. I think this is a great series to start off with, especially if you haven't read any of her other books. She does have another series called Throne of Glass, and while that is also kind of a fantasy romance, I feel like it's more heavy on the fantasy and less on the romance. And that book has a lot more world building in my opinion, and while that's actually probably my favorite fantasy romance series, I wouldn't recommend it as a new beginner because I feel like it can be a little bit too much or a little too daunting, and the story is very, very long. But you know, after you get through ACOTAR, I definitely recommend reading Throne of Glass. So that's it, besties. These are 7 books or series that I highly recommend for new readers or people who are just trying to get back into reading. I hope that there's something for you in this video, and if you started to read any of these books, please let me know what your thoughts are. I love to talk to people about books. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe, and also comment down below what are some book recommendations that you have for new readers, or also let me know if you want me to make a separate video deep diving into a specific genre. Love you guys! Mwah.